And, and now I'm going to turn the evening over to our interviewer, our guest, James Gavin. James, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. We're here tonight to learn a lot about the remarkable, enduring career of a harpist, pianist, singer, and a collaborator of many of the greats of show business of the last 60 years. We'll be talking about a lot of those collaborations, and we'll be talking a bit about her fairly recently released memoir entitled Corky Hale Uncorked, which is a great page turner loaded with fun. And for any of you watching this interview tonight, you're really going to want to get it because the pages fly by, and you will have a delightful time reading about the life of Corky Hale and about hearing more about her active philanthropy, which is a very cherished sideline of Corky's, and even a little bit about her 51-year, I believe I have that correct, 51-year marriage to a composer whose songs helped write the history of R&B, Mike Stoller. So Corky Hale, welcome.
I want to say just one thing after what you just said. When I moved to New York from LA, I moved in with a girlfriend, and she said, well, you better go over to the offices of Lieber and Stoller. I mean, you're going to be in the music business. And I said, who are Lieber and Stoller? I never heard of them. Anyway, I've been married to Stoller for 52 years.
Fantastic. Corky, like many big city women of show business, you started out in a tiny little town in Illinois, didn't you?
I did. It was on the Wisconsin border, actually. I'd like to say, I'm not sure. I guess I grew up in both Wisconsin and Illinois.
For those of us who never grew up in a small town like Freeport, Illinois, what was life like? What did your neighborhood look like? And did you enjoy being in a little place like that?
Well, I didn't know it. Oh my goodness, Denise, I didn't know any different. You know, I was born there. And so I just thought everything was small towns, and that's about all I knew. And I went through grade school there, and then all my friends were there. And Jim, the only difference is that there were, what, 500, we can hear you, Denise, if it's going to bleed into this. There were, I think Freeport had about 500,000. It was very small. And there were maybe 5 Jewish families. So that was the only difference, although I never really realized there was any difference. So that, you know, there was never any problems with that. So that was the only difference that I can think of, but it didn't change my life at all.
Whose idea was it that you would begin to study a variety of instruments?
Well, not a variety. I mean, I guess I went to the piano when I was about 5 years old and started playing things. And my mother said, you know, we better give this kid some piano lessons. And of course, as far as the harp, there was no harp teacher around. How did I get into the harp? I'm just trying to think. So I started taking piano lessons. And then I think, did I see a harp? You know, all of a sudden I went blank. I just went blank. I don't know, how did I get into the harp? But there was, of course, no harp teachers around. The only harp teacher was in Rockford, Illinois, which was 30 miles away. And this was the big deal. Sundays, there was also only one synagogue for 30 miles around. So my family was not very religious, I must tell you. But Sundays, here was the schedule. We would go to Rockford, Illinois. I would have a harp lesson. And then they would take me to Sunday school. And then the big deal was, this was the only Chinese restaurant for miles around. And then I would get a Chinese lunch. So that was the big deal for me. So you can see how sophisticated I grew up.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the harp. The harp.
About the what? You know what? Can you turn yourself up your little? It's quite. Yeah, it's very quiet. Okay. Would you like to talk about anything?
I would like to talk about the harp. The harp is a mysterious instrument to a lot of us. It seems as though you just run your fingers across it and celestial sounds come out. but it also seems to me to be a very difficult instrument to master. And I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about the technique of the harp and what it's like to play that thing.
Okay, the only person that ever played jazz on a harp that was any good was Dorothy Ashby, who passed away years ago. So harpists now today, and then I'm going to say something which I probably shouldn't. Do you know Leonard Feather? You knew Leonard, the jazz critic. Yeah. Jazz, he wrote a book and he said, when Dorothy passed away, he said, I'm the greatest jazz harpist in the world, which was rather nice. But anyway, I never think of myself as a harpist. I always think of myself as a pianist because I started lessons when I was, 5 years old. And so as far as, I don't know where to start with the harp. People say, oh, you're the harpist. And I say, well, I really consider myself a pianist. And then we get into it.
Tell me, was the harp a very difficult instrument to learn?
It still is. It still is. You know, there are 7 pedals on the harp. That's what makes, people don't know that. There's a pedal for every note. And that's what the difficult is. But, and this is not to denigrate other harpists, but there are a lot of harpists. People say, oh, I didn't realize that. And if you talk to them, they all say, you know, no matter if I'm in Chicago visiting relatives and I go somewhere and there's a tea room and somebody's playing the harp and she said, oh, you're Corky Hale? Well, I'm a jazz harpist too, you know. Every harpist that I speak to tells me they are a jazz harpist. So their idea of being a jazz harpist is if they play Raindrops Are Falling on My Head, because harpists don't play pop music. You know, they play Debussy and everything. So if they play anything that's popular, they consider themselves a jazz harpist. So no matter where I go, they always tell me, oh, yes, I'm a jazz harpist too.
No one ever had to make you practice your instruments, did they?
Oh, I'm horrible. I would never practice. I'm the worst. I would never practice at all.
And yet you devoted so many hours of your extreme youth to studying various instruments. I said various earlier, but I've read that you also played the flute at some point. Is that?
Yeah, I played the flute in the Freeport High School band, and I played the cello in the Freeport High School orchestra. Yeah. So yeah, I played a lot of instruments. I don't know how, I just suddenly picked them up and started playing.
What did your parents make of your close relationship with music?
What did they think? Well, they were proud, but they were both from small towns. My dad grew up in Arkansas and my mom. I had a wonderful childhood, just the best. And I don't know what to tell you. They thought it was wonderful that their child was very musical, and they certainly supported me. But then they said, well, maybe she should go to the conservatory. So that's what happened. They then sent me to the conservatory in Chicago. Denise, what's the place in Chicago that they sent me? The Chicago Conservatory? Oh, I can't remember anything. Yeah. Anyway, so I went to Chicago and I started playing there. And that was how my name got around, because I started playing, I guess, with bands. I take it back. At 17, I was at Freeport High School. And just rented a cottage this summer at Lake Geneva, which is in Wisconsin nearby. And I'm inviting all the girls to go. And she said, well, you can't come though, unfortunately, because they don't want any Jews there, which came as a huge shock because that had never, ever. So of course I went home and I told that to my dad, and he turned purple. And my dad said, well, I won't let you go back to Freeport High School next year. So they found the girls' school, Stevens College for Young Ladies in Missouri, which was, I guess, quite well known. And off they sent me the next year to Stevens College for Young Ladies. And well, this is the best part, I think. They had a harp teacher there. And she said, what is that vile music that you're attempting to play on a harp? And I said, well, that's jazz. She said, well, please don't ever play that in this school on your harp. So that's that was what went on with my harp. And I started playing. Then I guess at the University of Missouri, which was where Stevens was, they heard about me, and I started getting jobs because I do something that harpists never did. In other words, that's why I was always so busy. And I was like a pianist who played the harp. So you could say to me, if you were in a band, letter B, there's 12 bars, take, play it in A flat and play it in, 12 bars in A flat. Harpists do not grow up, like that. So that's why I was always busy.
Something interesting happened while you were at the University of Wisconsin, and that is that you joined the NAACP.
Oh, I'm the first student that ever joined the NAACP.
First white.
And first white student, of course. And so when I met, who did I met? He's the he's
Jealous.
Ben Jealous, the ex-president of NAACP. I met him a few years ago, and someone told him that, and he put his arm around me. Anyway, yes, I am the first white student that ever joined the NAACP.
And did you go to meetings on campus?
They didn't really hold meetings, but of course, I'm still very active in all kinds of Black politics. Where's the theater in
Montgomery, Alabama.
In Montgomery, Alabama, they built the
Civil Rights Memorial.
the
Plaza.
Civil Rights Memorial Theater is named for the Stollers because we did so much for the Black community in the South.
Yes.
I'm sure why, but we have always been, as a matter of fact, I would say our closest friends now and even here are a Black couple who are, and so I don't know what to say, but that's just why.
There's an interesting segue that you took at this approximate point in your life, and that is not many people know that you were a girl singer with big bands.
Well, I think I've done everything. When Gene Norman, who owned the Crescendo, wanted to be my manager, so he did. And then I guess with the bands that were playing, he owned the Crescendo. I think I was the first white woman that even played with Harry. He had Harry James band that was at the Crescendo, but I never thought of myself as a singer there. I just did. They said, "You want to sing a couple choruses at letter B," and I have something which is very good, which is lucky for me because I can play in any key on any instrument. So if somebody says play in the key, play that in B, people don't generally play in the key of B, but that's one of the things that always let me have jobs.
But it is fascinating. You sang with Harry James, Ray Anthony, Jerry Gray, and I believe Freddie Martin. Those were all significant bands of that.
I don't think I sang with Freddie. I can't even remember. That's so long ago. But they hired me first, of course, to play, piano. And I wound up, as a singer with the band, doing everything as usual.
How ambitious were you to get to California and to start your career?
I'm not sure. I don't know if that's what did I want to do? I wasn't sure. I think I did what I wanted to do. I played with the big bands. That was, but I will tell you here. Okay. Did you see my spot on the, are you going to show it? My thing on the Tonight Show?
You've showed me that
Okay.
from your supper club act of that moment.
Well, I'd love that if they could show that because so I was a guest on the Johnny Carson show, and he said go over and sing with the band, and I did. And the next day, Helen Keane, who was the Bill Evans manager, said, "Oh my God," she said, "I've got you booked in 5 different things. They all saw you on the." And here's what I said. I said, "Well, that's so exciting, and I'd love to do that." I said, "But I've just started dating this fellow, and I really don't want to leave town just yet, but I'll certainly talk to you." I had just met Mike Stoller, who, of course, I guess I fell in love with him the minute I met him. And so I I didn't go out. And so I always say to him, it was like, well, who was it on the guy who said I could have been a star? So anyway, so I always say to my husband, I could have been a star, but this is the life that I chose. So meanwhile, I have this wonderful life, with Mike over 50 years. We've traveled everywhere. We were very big. The only place we haven't gotten to, and I'm still unhappy, is Egypt, but we've been everywhere else. And we lived in Italy for a number of years in a beautiful apartment. And my life has been very exciting, I must say, but I never became a star. So I always say to Mike, look what you made me, look at this terrible life you put me into, and I could have been a star.
James, I found the clip on Johnny Carson if you want me to play it. It's about a minute.
Oh, I would love it can you play it?
Yeah, just hold on, give me a second. We'll do a
I would love to.
Okay, click this. You should be seeing it now.
There we are. I was on the show with Tony Bennett. Tony had brought me to play on the show with him. And Johnny Carson said, well, I hear you sing too. And I said, well, sort of.
All right, then we'll have one.
There I was playing the harp.
For once in my life, I had someone who needs me, someone I needed so long.
Of course, you can't hear the harp at all.
Oh, I'm afraid I can go where life leads me, and somehow I know.
If we move it up to where I'm singing, hopefully. There we go.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Does the heart give you good feeling in the heart? Why did the young lady take up the harp? Just looking to be started with piano playing?
Yes, I did when I was 3 years old.
Now don't tell me how the piano fell apart, like the Marx Brothers used to do, and it fell out and you picked it up.
I was a spoiled brat and I was studying at the conservatory and I saw this harp. So I said to my father, I've got to have a harp. And I kicked and screamed and threw a tantrum. And he got me a little one. And I progressed to the big one.
Is that a difficult? I know nothing about playing a harp. Just hasn't come up.
You want to start the lesson?
No, I can't do that.
I can show you the whole thing. It's very interesting.
Yeah, pedals, That's pedals. I never realized the harp had pedals.
Go up with your second finger and come down with your thumb.
What?
You'll be great.
Up where?
Up with your second finger. No. Okay. Up with the second finger.
Up with the
Okay.
side. What are these? The tightening of tension on the stomach? You carry that around the country with you? Pick up the flute or something. Did you play the flute too? You were up with Monica.
I was in your show 2 weeks ago.
When I was out there.
No, I was playing piano for Diane Piano when she sang. You just didn't see me.
I didn't know that. Was I here that time?
Oh, no, I'm sorry you weren't. No, I'm sorry.
No, I would have remembered you were here. This Corky Hale is good. You played for a Frank, you understand? Barbra Streisand, a couple of them.
And the late Nat Cole, I did a lot of things with Nat. Oh, I was on Ed McMahon's record album. I told him that tonight.
You accompanied Ed
Yeah, I
McMahon?
played harp on Ed's record, sure.
Is that right?
Sure, certainly.
I didn't know that. You played the flute? You played the flute? Is it
Yeah.
flutist or flautist? Or are both correct?
I think Webster says both.
Both are correct, huh?
A
And you
piccolo.
also sing. And I'm singing a good number for us tonight. And I hear you sing real well. You like it? Here's this Corky Hale.
Playing around with 27 men. Quite possibly that one was me. Hey, Flack, that's sharp. I said that's coming hard. Tony Bennett, Barbra Streisand, and Peggy Lee. But singers want to act, and actors want to sing. And once before I die, I want to try everything. 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 'Cause this is the life. Here's where the living is. This is the life. Gee, but it's great. This is the life. I've waited long enough. This is the best. This is first rate. Jazz and champagne. Juicy filet mignon. Chill at buffet. I'm here to stay. Top of the heap. I'm where I want to be. This is the life. This is the life. This is the life. Here's where the living is. This is the life. She's got it straight. This is the life. I've waited long enough. This is the best. This is the great. Traveling in style. First cabin all the way. How sweet the thought when you be mine. Top of the heap. I'm where I wanna be. This is the life. This is the life. This is the life.
Hello?
No.
Hi, okay. Well, Corky, at what point had Marilyn Hecht of Freeport, Illinois turned into Corky Hale? How did that happen?
Well, what you just saw, incidentally, me singing, the
Yes.
next day, I think I said Helen Keene, who was Bill Evans' manager, called up and she said, "Oh my God, I got you booked in 10 clubs all over the country." And that's when I said to her, "Well, I've just started dating this fellow and I don't want to leave town just yet." But of course, so that's why I now say, "You ruined my life. Look what I..." Okay. When did I become Corky Hale?
I'm Corky Hale, and how?
How? Let's see. I moved to New York. Denise, how did I become Corky Hale?
You became Corky Hale when you were with one of the bands.
Well, I guess when I was with one of the bands, I became, that was it. We were going to do a remote throughout the country. And they said, Marilyn Hecht, I don't think that's going to sound too great. So, well, I'd always been called Corky since I was a child. So I thought, well, Hale was the first name that came to mind. So I thought, well, I'll become Corky Hale. And when I moved to New York, I changed my name. That's it. It's not very exciting, but that's what happened.
I'm wondering, when you first set foot in Los Angeles, what did it feel like? What do you remember seeing? How do you remember feeling about your earliest moments there?
Darling, that was 100 years ago. I can't remember. I think I came out here to go to school and, or Stevens, I'm trying to get it all mixed. I had, so much went on in my life. And that was it when the harp teacher told me I was so terrible out here. And she said, "You're playing that vile music on a harp, on a beautiful instrument. You're playing all that terrible stuff." And
yet you hit the ground running. There is a remarkable moment, and it was just a moment in your very early life, but you played the harp at the wedding of Peggy Lee and her second husband, the movie star, the movie tough guy, Brad Dexter.
I also, sorry, I'm interrupting. I also played for the memorial for her, and I think I played for her funeral. A
Yeah.
lovely woman, a sweet woman.
And furthermore, you played on a very important album called Mirrors, in which Peggy Lee sang the songs of Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller.
Yeah, of course they hired me.
Now, you were installed in Los Angeles, and as far as I can tell, very quickly you became absorbed into the world of studio players, recording sessions with some extraordinary people.
I was called because of what I told you earlier. I can play in any key, which most people can't do. And that was one of the things that got me a lot of jobs. You know, they said, so I mean, what else can I tell you? I was very lucky. I started working, you know, on everybody's albums. I was very, very lucky.
One of which, and I believe this is the first time I ever saw your name in print, but you appear on a legendary album made in 1955 with Chet Baker, Russ Freeman, Bud Shank, and strings.
Probably. I mean, you know, I was a huge fan of all those guys, of course.
And then the following year, you're on another historic album called Anita O'Day's first album on Verve Records, arranged by Buddy Bregman.
You're unbelievable. My God. I can't believe, I mean, you are, you know, such a wild guy on knowing about everything that, you know, went on in the music business.
But as I looked through your discography, I was really stunned to see some of the albums that you contributed to, including the first two Ella Fitzgerald songbooks on Verve.
Yes, I played. Yes.
Harp.
Were those with Buddy Bregman?
They were. Are we frozen?
I think we may have lost her. Yeah, she's gone.
All right. Well, she'll come back.
Play the clip again.
Truly, the discography of Corky Hale is eye-opening, because I didn't know until I read through it that Corky had played on albums that at the time, I imagine, were prestigious sessions, but on albums that later acquired this great sheen of history. And there are so many of them I want to ask her about. Coming up in our interview, we will talk about Corky's probably most famous collaboration, and that is with Billie Holiday in the year 1956. I believe I have that year correct. There's so many names to ask her about. I have Liberace on my list, because there is an existent Liberace television show in which you can see Corky Hale. And Corky, so many things to ask her. Being on the road with Billie Holiday, talking on the phone with Cecil B. DeMille, and then playing on the soundtrack of the movie 10 Commandments. So if we can just get her back. Magda, do you need her telephone number? Should we give her a call? Magda?
Hello. Okay. Could you call her, or do you want me to call her? Maybe you should call her just to.
Okay,
Or
sorry.
you want to text me her telephone number? I'll call her.
Yes, I think I'm going to do that.
Okay. Do you have my? Okay.
One moment here. Let's see. Where can I send you a message? I guess under chat.
Okay. Yeah, privately you can.
Okay, Magda.
Just say to Magda. Okay. And I'll.
All right.
Wait, she's coming back. Hold on.
Oh, good. Thank God.
Okay. Is she trying to get back on?
Yeah, it's in the process of joining.
Oh, that,
Nothing's happening.
Maybe she could go on that computer that she was.
Her Wi-Fi too, because it's just sitting there now.
the wonders of Zoom.
Oh, I know. I know.
For the last year, it's been the best we could do, but all of that is changing.
I know.
Yeah.
But they have to perfect it a little bit more.
She seems to be hung up, just sitting there trying to
Uh,
Try to reach out to her, maybe to tell her to log out and log back in. Oh, we lost her again. Oh, wait, she's there.
you see her?
She's connecting to audio. It's coming in the other computer room now.
Mm,
We'll get there.
yeah, just everybody be patient with us.
Magda, I'm
We're-
sure that in these interviews, you have encountered every possible technical.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Where we had, where people couldn't log on and I was like panicking. So I had to call everybody, give them a new link. That was, but you know, we have such incredible people that it's worth the wait. We've had a wonderful session. And as I was telling you, we're going to have Keir Dulé coming up and
That's
Don Murray.
Oh my God, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous of who's ever interviewing Keir Dulé.
Well,
Who will it be?
it'll be Foster is going to Foster Hirsch. You know, he's a wonderful interviewer as you are, and he's written many books on films. That's his specialty. And he's a professor at Brooklyn College.
Well,
We're very lucky to have him.
oh, I see.
Okay.
a sign of hope.
Yes, here we go.
Yeah, but we don't have any sounds.
Just connecting to the audio.
Yeah. Could
Or
be-
maybe she'll come to that computer.
Yeah, it could be the Wi-Fi, but she's still not fully logged in with sound yet.
Oh dear.
Well, it's an encouraging sign because there is the office, Corky's office of the Stoller home in the Hollywood Hills, where I have been on a number of occasions.
And how did you meet Corky?
Well, I met Corky in the course of researching my biography of Peggy Lee because of and going to the house to interview Mike and Corky as well. First, I sat with Corky for 45 minutes in the office that you see, and then I went into Mike's office, and luckily I've been in their company many times since.
Oh.
Mhm.
You want to mention some of the songs that he has written? My favorite is That All There Is, but he's written many more than that.
Is my favorite too. It's probably a lot of people's favorites. Mike is renowned for he has so many different distinct periods in his composing career. And I suppose he is best known for having co-written a series of Elvis Presley hits. But then he was associated closely with Atlantic Records, and a lot of the top Atlantic artists recorded Lieber and Stoller songs that ultimately became the basis of a very successful Broadway revue that toured the world called Smokey Joe's Cafe. My personal favorite body of work, because I love Peggy Lee, of Lieber and Stoller, is the aforementioned album Mirrors, which Peggy Lee made right around the time that you were working with her, Magda.
Right, right. And I have it autographed to me. She gave it to me.
I'd like to see that sometime.
Yep.
And that album at the time was not a commercial nor artistic success. And with the passing of the years, it became renowned as a masterpiece, in my opinion, but also in the opinion of many other people. So there's a lot of talent contained in that gray and silvery house in the Hollywood Hills. And let's see, meanwhile, here are some questions. I heard John Springer and Peggy Lee were friends. Indeed, they were. John Springer was the publicist of Peggy Lee in the late 60s and early 70s.
Mhm.
And John Springer was the go-to publicist for the great ladies of the golden age of Hollywood. I regret the fact that I never met him. Or Errol says, oh,
Will I speak to Jim now?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Corky, you're worth waiting for. Audio. All we need is audio, and we're ready. Thanks for your patience, folks.
There you go.
Jim, of course, after this lovely interview, I will want to, donate to the Lambs Club. So we will talk about that afterwards. Okay.
Oh, that's thank you, Corky.
Well, certainly. I mean, you guys have been lovely to me, so I will certainly want to.
Honor.
Now, Corky, when we were cut off by cruel technology, we were talking about your appearance on two, again, to use this word, historic Ella Fitzgerald albums, the Cole Porter Songbook and the Rodgers and Hart Songbook. Tell us your memories of being in the studio with Ella.
I cannot tell you. I wish my memories. I mean, unfortunately I worked with so many fabulous singers. They say I worked with 5 of the most famous singers. I played with all 5 of them in the country, and I can't tell you. You know about Billie Holiday. You know I am the only woman. Are we going to get to that? I am the
into your Billie Holiday period, which is something that many people want to know about because.
Well, I am the only woman that was ever Billie's piano player, music director, and it's interesting that in '72, the producer of the first movie on Billie and this last one with Lee Daniels neither of them wanted to really talk to me. They didn't want to know the real things about Billie. But she was a darling woman. And when Audrey McDonald did Billie on Broadway and Lonnie was the director, he did bring Audrey out to meet me so I could talk to her and tell her some real things about Billie, who was terribly shy. And the Broadway show, they had Billie would go out of her dressing room and walk through the audience and shake people's hands, which never, ever. Billie was very, very shy and very sweet and very sad. She only wanted one whole thing in her lifetime, and that was to have a baby, and she never did. But I sat in her dressing room with her, and, she was a lovely, sweet woman with a terrible life.
Was it in Las Vegas that you first crossed your path?
Looks like we lost her again.
What a cliffhanger, huh? Okay, folks, we're begging your patience yet again. Corky's expression is frozen in that imploring look.
Well, I think it's at her end. I think she must not have good internet connection where she is, near the mountains, I guess.
It's likely, but there is, luckily it exists. There was a television series from 1956 through 58 that was produced in Los Angeles called Stars of Jazz. The host was Bobby Troop. And it was a local series. I believe it got some syndication in the final season. But Stars of Jazz is now one of the Bibles of jazz on film because it preserved performances by many of the greatest jazz musicians who were alive and playing in those 3 years. And not all of the shows exist, but fortunately one of them does. That Corky Hale is on, and that's the Billie Holiday episode. And Corky's segment with Billie Holiday, it's Here We Come Again. It's 2 songs, and we get to see on film Corky Hale and Billie Holiday in 1956. It's probably up there on YouTube, I'm guessing. It's been released commercially. So
What's it called? I'll look it up.
Well, look up Billie Holiday Stars of Jazz and see if you can find it there. It was released on a Universal Billie Holiday box set. And goodness gracious, Corky was so young. Here's Denise again. Poor Denise.
I wonder if she could come on this. I wonder if she could come on her computer. You're on mute. Denise, you're on mute.
There we go. I'm gonna bring her over to
Yeah, I
this.
think it's better if she's in that computer. Thank you.
Come over to my computer.
All right. It seems to work better than
It
this.
does.
Okay.
Thanks, Denise.
You're welcome,
Thank you,
you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, here I come. Here I am.
Okay. And then we'll see about.
You better call your husband and tell him you're gonna be late for dinner.
Thanks for your patience, Corky.
There we go. Now scooch in.
Okay. Yeah, okay, there we
There
are.
we go.
All
Okay.
right.
Now you're.
Or when we were cut off by Zoom technology, I was asking you, was it in Las Vegas that you and Billie Holiday met?
What about Billie Holiday? See, now I can't hear you.
You go ahead and say it again.
Was it in Las Vegas that the two of you met?
I'm sorry about Vegas.
Was it in Las Vegas that you really met?
When I met Billy, was that in
Yes.
Las Vegas? I guess that was. Yeah, I'm trying to remember everything, Jim, and it's so much went on in my lifetime that it's hard to remember every single thing.
I know. Corky, I'm curious to ask you, what was it like? Give us a sense of the sensation of being at the piano while Billie Holiday was singing.
Well, of course, it was terribly exciting. What can I say? I mean, I am the only woman that was ever her piano player or music director, and I'm quite surprised, as I say, in 1972 when the first producer of the first movie and this last movie, Lee Daniels, who's a lovely man, they really did not want me around. I don't think they had their, but anyway, I love the last picture that, and I think she's fabulous. I was hoping that, what's her name? That
Andra
Day would win and that Lee would win. And I prayed for them both. And so when they didn't, Lee Daniels called and he was very sweet. And he said, thank you for all the support that you tried to give us. Anyway.
Did Billie Holiday ever instruct you as to how she wanted you to play for her?
Well, I mean, you instruct you to how, evidently they liked the way that I played. They liked the chord structure. I mean, that's why they all hired me.
Sometimes those singers will tell you to do a little more of something or a little less of something.
I can't think of anything. They often say that's why I was lucky playing for singers, because I understood where to not play and where to hold up. And once again, I can play in any key, which was very important to singers. Yes. And I don't think that I mentioned there is a young lady in San Francisco who does documentaries, who is currently, she's been working on it for what, 1 year? Mm-hmm. She is doing a documentary on me. And I don't think that I'm going to mention the main reason. I'm very active in the pro-choice movement for women. And we won't get into that because that's been a major part of my life. My husband and I built a number of clinics, and
yes.
So she is doing something called the green dress. You know that I also had a very successful women's clothing store in Hollywood.
Yes, and why in the midst of this very hectic music career that you were holding on, what gave you the idea of opening up a women's clothing?
Was it my mother?
Your mother.
My mother, who was loved by everybody, was the most, she was quite different than me in one respect. I wear blue jeans most of the time. And my mother was the most stylish, gorgeous creature ever. And she said, let's open a clothing store in Hollywood and all the movie stars and everything. Anyway, so we opened Corky Hale on Sunset Boulevard. And of course, from the first day that it opened, who was the comedian? I got a bunch of gorgeous models and I had them parading up and down Sunset Boulevard. And it was a big hit, and my store was a big hit. But also that was the last thing that I wanted to do. I was so busy with music. And so my mother pretty much ran the store and everybody loved her. And they loved my father too, because my father would sit in the front, and Sidney Skolsky would sit with Dad, because he was across the street from, the
Garden of Allah.
What?
Garden of Allah.
No, not only the Garden of Allah, the Schwab's drugstore. So all the guys, of course, would gather in the front with my dad and sit because they wanted to take a look at all those gorgeous girls running in and out of my store. And I must tell you, I think she's not alive now, but I loved her. Who walked out of the store, out of the dressing room nude.
I don't remember.
Barbara.
Some famous actress.
One of the famous actresses was in my store, and she loved some dress that was outside. And so she walked out completely nude out of the dressing, and my mother said, "Barbara, please, darling, go back into the," I mean,
Where
but-
you met Diane Cannon.
Is that where I met Diane?
Diane Cannon, yeah.
What, in my store?
Yeah, wasn't she one of the models?
Yeah,
And Raquel
I guess
Welch.
my close girlfriend, she was my maid of honor when I got married, was Diane Cannon, the actress.
Yes.
And where did I meet Diane?
At the store.
At my store? Was that it? I don't know. So much has happened in my life, which which is in the book. But
Corky, there are not many musicians who can lay claim to having worked with both Billie Holiday and Liberace. And
he
you
was
may
the
be the only-
sweetest, nicest, darling man ever. And we had a wonderful relationship, and I really toured with him, in a lot of places. And he was a darling man, lovely man.
And there are even fewer musicians who one day received a telephone call from Cecil B. DeMille.
Oh, well, so I was living, I don't know, with one of my girlfriends here in, I guess, or was I still at UCLA? I can't keep everything straight, Jim. My life is, anyway, so she said, "Cecil B. DeMille is on the phone." I said, "Yeah, so is the Pope. Come on, what do you want?" And she said, no, it's really Cecil B. DeMille. So I got on the phone and he said, "Miss Hale, I've seen you in various, and I'm doing a movie called The 10 Commandments. And every time," what's her name?
Olivia de Havilland, whoever was.
No, it wasn't Olivia de Havilland, the other actress. She, whenever she's doing her wedding scenes, "I would like you to play for her wedding scenes." I just went blank. It's
Well,
the
it was
actress.
the 10 Commandments, I believe. It was
I'm sorry.
the 10 Commandments, right?
The 10 Commandments.
10 Commandments, yeah. So I'm playing on that too.
I am, if you don't mind, I'm going to throw some more names out at you because the range of the artists that you have played with is really astonishing. James Brown. What did you do with James
Oh,
Brown?
I want his Christmas album. I loved him. He's wonderful. Yeah, he called. He said, "I want you to play some jazz harp on my Christmas album." I said, "Okay, you got it." So he was a darling guy too.
And,
Now, I'll tell you something interesting.
yes.
You've noticed that I've worked with so many. There is only one horrible person of all those people that I worked with. And I waited until he died because I was not going to denigrate him in my book, because I'm so lucky. I worked with such nice, wonderful, darling people. And this guy was the worst. So I played with him here. And then we went to play at a nightclub in Florida. And he was so vile there. I called Mike, my husband, and I said, "I can't work for anybody like that." And my husband said, "Honey, get him to give you a ticket, get on a plane and come back and tell him to, what he can do." So that's what happened. And so I think, did I say a few nasty words about him in my book? Maybe. I don't know. But anyway,
And can you divulge his identity for the good viewers tonight?
what should I
I
say?
don't know who it was.
Let's see. I'll tell you who's alive. Let's see. His late wife is not, and his son, I don't think. But in order to get even, I think I went out on a date with his son a couple times. But
The answers reside in.
it wasn't what he was doing to me. I have been very big in with the NAACP and all of that,
Black community.
and with Black music and Black artists. And so we were a club in Florida. And I was the band, I must say the band loved me. And I loved the band and we were great. So one night, Tony, this guy, was a real drunkard. He was drunk. I don't know how he ever did any of shows. So this night he did the show and he was so drunk. And at the end he said, "Can I have a lot of requests? I'll do some requests for you." So someone screamed out the Desert Song. Well, nobody knows the Desert Song except that my mother used to sing that with, with the Nelson Eddy and Blue Heaven and You and I. So I happen to know the Desert Song. So I played a chord, and Tony, who I may not mention the rest of his name, was so drunk he couldn't get the note. He went, and he turned to the band and the audience and he said, "This kid is new and she doesn't know a lot of stuff in music." And I thought the band would kill him. So that was it. So anyway, when I called my husband and I said, he said, "Honey, tell Tony to take his voice and you know what to do with it, and let him give you a ticket back to New York. You don't have to suffer." And it was nothing that he did to me. He said the most vile words I have ever heard anyone speak about Black people. And of course, that's who I've always worked with. And I couldn't deal with it. So that's my story.
A bit later, I have a few more names for you. You were on a remarkable breakthrough album, and it's the album that it's the album in which Judy Collins transitions from folk music into artier music called Judith, and that is the album.
Another lovely woman. I adore her. She's a lovely, lovely, darling woman.
And you played with her at the Roxy there in Los Angeles.
Right.
Is preserved because it was broadcast, and I've got it.
As I said, there's so many people that I worked with. How can I remember every single thing I did? The only one I remembered was this vile person that I just said to you.
Now,
everybody else has been wonderful.
But you also play on a couple of the great early albums of Roberta Flack on Atlantic Records.
Yes, absolutely. Right.
And on a Nina Simone album on RCA called Here Comes the Sun.
Oh, okay. Let me tell you a little thing about Nina. Who was the conductor? Do you remember the conductor?
No.
Anyway, so he called up and he said, "I've got a big session at I don't know, whoever," and he said, "with Nina Simone, and I'm going to do a whole intro with just Nina singing with you and the harp." So we got to the session. He had like 35 musicians, I guess at RKO or whatever. And Nina didn't show up. And he said, "Uh-oh, Nina's throwing one of her fits. She's at home and she refuses to come in and record today." So he said, "Can you sing the intro and pretend that it's Nina?" And I said, "I'll do that." So I did that too. Anyway, I always felt bad. I never knew her. I didn't have a chance to meet her. And I saw that documentary on her later, and then I realized that she was a sad, sick woman, and I always felt sorry for her, and I never then had a chance to play with Nina Simone.
But someone for whom you have glowing things to say is Barbra Streisand. You did a number of things with her.
Oh, she's my idol. Are you kidding? You notice I don't have anything terrible to say about all the people that I worked with, and that Tony is the only one. Everybody else I've lucked out. I played with wonderful people that treated me great, and I loved the music I was doing with them. And what can I say? I've been very lucky. Well, Barbra Streisand. I mean, the thing that I think she's the greatest. I still do. But I remember a session that we were doing at Columbia in New York. And I mean, my God, 40 musicians and everything. And in the midst of it, she said, "Stop, stop." She said, "There's a wrong note in the second clarinet or something." And I thought, my God, how does that woman know that? She's a genius. She really is. So
you've also worked with some of the great film composers, haven't you? Because you've played on a number of film soundtracks.
Well, there was, Cecil B. DeMille asked me to play on all the, I'm trying to think of the actress, every scene that she was in that had to do with weddings and marriage, he asked me to play during that. As I say, I played with so many people, I can't remember every single thing.
And then in 1998, you made a beautiful recording with George Michael, one track.
Oh, I'm trying to get a single out of that. That's another darling guy. I was so excited to record with him in London. And poor guy, he's the sweetest. At this point, his mother had just died and his dad had a new girlfriend, and George was feeling so unhappy and everything. And I loved work. I'm trying to get a single of that song that I did with George. it's been hard. I don't know.
I
Anyway,
remember you.
I remember you.
Yes. What we haven't mentioned so far is the fact that you have headlined many of your own shows. Sometimes you have guest singers, sometimes not. But in the circuit of jazz clubs throughout Los Angeles, you're very well known and loved, Catalina, Vibrato, etc. And I'm curious, how did it feel to step forward after having been behind some of these great stars? Now you were the star.
Well, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, I guess it's great being the star, but I love playing for all these people. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. You know, I lucked out, as I say. I just lucked out playing for the record that I did with George Michael is so wonderful. You can't play that tonight, can you?
Mm.
And he was another darling guy, a sweetheart. And I always felt bad because when his mother died, I was working with him, I guess, in London. I don't know, but when his mother died, it really wrecked him. Yeah. Anyway.
But tell us a little more about your own shows. You have a Billie Holiday tribute show, but that's one of a number of shows that you've done.
Well, a number of years ago, I did the Sammy Kahn show.
And you also did the two Mrs. Stollers.
Oh, you don't know the greatest new thing that happened either. I am so lucky.
Jeez.
When I married Mike, I got 3 children. I got 2 sons and a daughter. And one of the sons married the most incredible woman. She just got her pharmaceutical license. She's just the most darling, fabulous woman. But turns out she's a great singer. She sang in a jazz club in New York. I mean, it's unbelievable. So what we did was we got together and we did a show called The Two Mrs. Stollers. And we did it at the Annenberg a couple of years ago and sold it out, and people were lined up to get more tickets, but we haven't had a chance to. She's been working, she just got her license.
And she's giving vaccines.
What?
She's giving the vaccine right now.
Oh yeah, my daughter-in-law she just vaccinated 2,000 people at some clinic. I mean, as you can see, my life is really unbelievable. It's pretty unbelievable.
You know,
But,
watching that Tonight Show clip earlier on, it strikes me how very comfortable and confident you appeared in front of the camera on this enormous live television show.
Well, I am comfortable appearing, and it's just that, as you can see, I'm so involved in everything. I don't have time for all the things that I want to do. I am very unhappy right now. I can't stand people living on the streets with no toilet, no showers, under a tent and with children and everything. So that's what I'm trying now. You know, and my husband says, honey, when are you going to sing? When are you going to play? And I said, you know, I'll get there. But that's what's going on now.
And for the last quite a few years, your philanthropy has been a significant part of your life. You devote a lot of time to helping your pet causes.
Yeah, we give a lot of money to that, and to a lot of various charities.
Are there any that you'd care to mention that are particularly special to you?
Project Angel Food.
I love having my assistant here. She's the world's greatest. Project Angel Food, Richard Ayub. Yes, they're wonderful. Do you know about Project Angel Food?
Oh, very well. Why don't you tell us, for those of us who don't know, talk to us a little bit about what Project Angel Food
Well,
is.
it's hard for me to explain it. It's just that they give out food to people that need food.
They take food to people who are homebound.
And, we take food to people that are homebound a lot with sickness and everything, old age and everything. That's one of the charities that's great that people should look into.
Yes.
Project Angel Food.
Corky, what do you have cooking musically right now? What are you planning? What are you hoping to do in the next, let's say, year?
What am I hoping to do? The only thing is maybe do another show with my daughter-in-law called The Two Mrs. Stollers, because everybody loved it. And I'd like to do another show with her. There was something else that I was thinking that I would like to do, but
Songs for Weddings, a CD.
what?
The CD, Songs for Weddings.
Well, Songs for Weddings, a new romantic album, but there's just so many things really that I want to do that I can't think about it all. You know, I'm very, very political. We obviously gathered that. You're shaking your head, Jim. And it's no secret that I'm very democratic. And, you know, and
I'm glad Denise brought up songs for weddings, because I do want to talk a little bit more about one of your great accomplishments, which is this highly, to use the word enduring again, 51-year marriages in Hollywood do not grow on trees.
should I tell you the reason? I don't care. I'm going to tell you the reason because people don't believe it. And I'll say, this has nothing to do with sex. I
Yes.
will tell you what is going on, and that is that we have slept nude for 52 years. We just think that you can't be angry or unhappy with anybody. And it has nothing to do with sex. You get into bed. And so years ago, we went out to visit my mother in Santa Monica. And we got out there and we realized we had no sleeping. We had no robes or anything. So my mother said, whoa, what is this? But she was a very free thinker. But anyway, so we borrowed robes and nightgowns from my mother. But that is, people say, how have you been married for 52 years? And I tell them, I said, it has nothing to do with sex. You cannot be angry or unhappy with anyone if you get into bed and you feel somebody's sick, skin. And that's my story.
Apart from that, though, you think alike in many ways. You have similar political passions.
Oh, it's scary because I'll open up my mouth to say, honey, in the closet is it? And he'll open up his mouth to say, honey, in the closet. I mean, it's scary. We really think alike and always have. And, and luckily it turned out well. He thinks I'm a great stepmother and everything has turned out well.
How is Mike doing?
How is Mike what?
Mike doing? How is he?
How is he doing? He's great. Oh, okay. A few months back, he was obviously depressed because nothing was going on. And he got a call from, what's her name, Dart. And she said, I'm the producer of the movie, right?
I don't know.
Of the movie with called, I just drew a blank, drew Beaches with starring Bette Midler. And the producer said, we want to turn it into a Broadway show. And we'd love you to do the music. So now Mike is thrilled. Mike works night and day. He's doing the score for Beaches, which they're going to turn into a Broadway show.
How marvelous. Who is he collaborating with? Who's his lyricist?
Well, the lyrics, I think
Iris.
she did all the lyrics. Yeah.
Iris.
Iris Dart, who did the movie. I mean, she did.
So Mike Stoller is writing a Broadway show. What wonderful news.
Yes, we're very excited about it. It's great.
Corky, do you practice the harp regularly?
Oh, that's the funniest thing I've heard today. I never go near it. And he's very unhappy with me. I haven't touched the harp in probably 2 years. And as even the piano, I'm just out of the music now. I mean, there's so many things. I want to get the people out of those tents on the street I drive by, and I can't stand that. And I work very hard for the Democrats. And I think Biden is a fabulous man, and his wife is a wonderful woman. And so I'm very involved with people living on the streets and underprivileged children and people that have no place to live and not enough food. And we're very big with the food bank. What else can I tell you?
Any desire to put a new show together and go back to Catalina? Or
Absolutely. Catalina, they've already called me and said, when do you want to come back to work? Put a new show. I had a wonderful show that played, what year do we remember? 60. The music of.
That was
You might
4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Okay. The show.
I
only have eyes for you. The life of Al Dubin. Yes, I would. That was a wonderful, wonderful show, and I would like to do that again.
And we haven't even gotten into the shows you've produced. You have worn that hat also.
Oh, please. I can't do everything. That's what I'm trying. That's what my husband says. Honey, you try to do too much. That's no good.
It really is dazzling to look down the bullet points of your career.
what are the, what?
It's
The mo-
dazzling to look at your career.
Oh, well, I don't know how dazzling it is, but I've been very lucky, and I worked, and as I said many times, I have worked with wonderful people. I've worked with you've seen who I've worked with, and very lucky. Out of all those people, there was only one horrible, horrible person.
Now, I've omitted perhaps the most important name of all, and that is Frank Sinatra.
Well, I don't know that that's the most important name of all.
Maybe the one that people are the most curious about.
I said to Mike, I said, honey, the reason that my book has not sold is there's nothing salacious in it. And I said, I'd like to say, Frank Sinatra tried this and everything. And I said, but none of it is true. I dated Frank a lot, and he would hold my hand and take me to the opening of a show or anything. And my husband said, don't put anything salacious in the book. But there's nothing salacious. I mean, really, Magna's smiling.
Give us a little Frank. Tell us about Frank as you knew him.
Well, Frank was a lovely man. I mean, it's tiresome. I keep talking about all the stars that I've been with, and I say they're all lovely. Frank was a lovely man. He took me to wonderful shows and wonderful openings of everything. And I just feel, and he was just a good man, a really good man, and very talented. And it was a pleasure to play for somebody that's such a good singer. I can't say anything terrible. That's why the book is not a big seller, because I have nothing salacious in my book. But
I'd like to move a few more copies of that book. So Corky and Denise, tell us the best way for people to buy a copy of Corky Hale Uncorked.
Well, of course,
Amazon.
Okay.
I think it's only $23 or $22. Oh,
yes.
there it is.
There it is.
Okay.
Amazon.com. There she is.
So keep holding the book. I want to see if I recognize all the faces. Billie Holiday, George Michael, Liberace. I can't quite see. There's Mike.
Obama.
And Tony Bennett, I believe.
Right, absolutely.
So you've got George Michael on the top with Billie Holiday. Then the next one is Tony Bennett, Liberace, and Frank Sinatra. And then on the bottom is Obama with Mike and Corky.
Now, who is it next in between Corky and the harp on the left side? Who's that?
Kissing her on the cheek. On the left side, that's Tony Bennett.
On the other side.
Oh, Liberace in the center.
And who's on the other side?
Isn't it?
Sinatra with the harp. That's Sinatra.
Of course, that's Sinatra.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can't see that.
Corky, I can only say congratulations on having sung and played for your supper for, dare I say, 60 years.
It's been a wonderful, wonderful life, Jim. I'm the luckiest person ever. And I don't know what to say, but I have been very lucky. I also had a wonderful upbringing, which a lot of people haven't had. I had fabulous parents. I mean, I grew up in a farm town, but I just had a lovely upbringing, and I've been very lucky.
And behind you, I'm looking at a probably balmy breeze, stirring the trees at one of the really magnificent views that I have seen.
We do. We're up in the hills. And we have this lovely view of the whole city, actually. And so,
well, Corky,
it was nice seeing you too.
Corky, now that things are reopening, I look forward to seeing you soon out on the town.
We're going to invite you to
The two Mrs. Stollers.
no, what's the club?
Catalina.
We're going to invite you to the first show at Catalina, because I will go back and
I would
play.
like that very much.
And hopefully it'll be the two Mrs. Stollers. You will love that show. You will love it. She's fabulous.
Corky, thank you for spending this time with us.
Are you kidding? Thank you for having me and asking such intelligent questions and saying, instead of, remember, I'm from farm country and I've been, on other shows, and they go, well, what was Peggy Lee? I mean, how was she? And you're so smart. You're like an encyclopedia. My God, I can't believe.
Well, it comes from reading your book, which I really do implore people to pick up a copy of, because it's just fun. It's fun.
I figured it's fun. It is. And it's like nothing else that you'll read.
Yeah, it's fun to relive several eras of irreplaceable legends of show business that all have one thing in common, and that's you.
Well, thank you. You've been just a joy and a pleasure. And I should thank who set up our interview.
Magda,
Alan Eichler.
Yes, indeed, Alan Eichler,
Yes.
your divine publicist. So, Magda, would you like to say anything?
that's what I'd like to thank both of you. This has been so wonderful. And Corky, your book gave me great pleasure. And I will send you a little note because I want to talk about the Timpan Alley, that whole show that I read about that you did. And hopefully you'll do it again. Maybe you'll come to New York, and there might be a possibility to do it in New York.
I have another problem. I hate planes.
Oh, well, it's not so bad. It's not.
No, anyway, are you kidding? I've flown all over the world, but
exactly. Well,
but
we need you in New York.
thank you, darling. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. And James, as always, you're the best. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And then hopefully our next interview will be Keir Dullea. And then after that, we hope to get Don Murray.
Wonderful.
Good.
Great actor.
Good.
Thank you, Corky, and be well.
Thank you all for being so kind and wonderful.
Take
Thanks, Corky, so much. It was fun.